let's start with the optimism, because I could use a little optimism in my life at this point. What would you point to for 2023, or data points from 2022 that could point towards a soft landing or an optimistic economic outlook for this year?
When I talked to you before the holiday, I talked about the banking industry and that we were optimistic for 2023 given jobs. And
Yep.
while the job growth is moderating, it's still strong.
Oh yeah, I mean,
So
200
that
some
gives
odd
them the
thousand jobs
optimism.
created in the month of December. That's pretty
Yep.
fantastic.
Yep. And then inflation's cooling. So that's something to keep an eye on, particularly with the Fed. They have a benchmark historically of around 2%, so it's still pretty high at around 7. But then a couple other things: gas prices have gone down, and real wages have gone up. Now, in an earlier segment, you were talking about rents going down and car prices going down. That's more money in the consumer's pocket.
It is.
So that adds to our optimism as well.
What are you seeing in terms of loan demand? Obviously, rates have skyrocketed in 2022, and perhaps not in historical context. 6.5% on a 30-year mortgage is not historically damaging, but in terms of the pace of change, what has that done, in your view, to loan demand from individuals, businesses, institutions, et cetera?
I think you hit the nail on the head that historically rates are okay. While they've spiked a lot given their historic lows, it's still okay. We're seeing it differently in two different segments. For business loans, there's still demand. As long as revenues, the businesses are generating revenue, they're borrowing and need to borrow, particularly for CapEx. In the commercial investment space, that has certainly slowed down, and the returns to the developers won't be as great as they historically have been, given the rates have gone up.
Do you have an outlook for this spring's housing market? I think it's being looked at with a lot of anticipation. I keep hearing this narrative that folks feel, hey, rates might be dropping sometime in the near future. I'm going to wait for that to happen. I'm not sure I see it. Do you have any outlook on what might see this spring?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on the rates, Mike. I don't think they're going to drop anytime soon. What we're looking at is a bumpy first half of the year with the change in Washington, certainly global political with
Sure.
Ukraine, but looking for stabilization in the second half of the year. So that's where we're more positive, is the second half of the year, Mike.
In my view, when it comes to this economy, I see, three potential paths with obviously a whole lot of black swan events and unexpected things that'll happen in between. But, there's clearly the most desired path of the soft landing, where inflation comes down and moderates. We don't head into recession. There's the path of, hey, inflation moderating, but recession being reached. And then there's, I think, the path of, no recession, but inflation not really moderating, and those savings that people see from things like used cars and gas prices being lower going towards plane tickets and just driving inflation higher. Do you have a most likely path, or are you seeing one that I'm not maybe considering at this stage?
No, not seeing one you don't consider. I think the middle one was the more likely in what we view.
So a recession
And you hit
followed
on
by moderating inflation.
Yep.
Okay.
Correct. And you hit on two key things in a prior segment, too, is the December Consumer Price Index is coming out Thursday,
Yep.
and earnings season's kicking off in earnest on Friday. So those two things are really going to, I think, lead us into where we go in the first half of this year.
Does your bank, or do you have any projections personally about year-end inflation numbers and year-end unemployment numbers?
6.5 is kind of what the market is targeting for inflation. So I think if it's below that, it will act favorably. If it's above that, then it won't act favorably.
Fair enough. Dan Griggs, regional president from Oceanfirst Bank, on his outlook for 2023 and hopefully some reasons to be optimistic as we head into the new year. Dan, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it, and talk to you soon.